All right, I've been fooling around with this a little bit, trying to see how everything's going to fit. Trying to sneak up on this because if I make a cut, then I have to try and find more materials, which is a real pain. I have determined already that doing it this way requires two sets of this upper track out of the Challenger. You can see this is where it normally ends at the B post, right here. And because what's left over, well, obviously it's designed to go from this point forward on the Challenger, so there's no expectation that you would have enough material to do down the following quarter window area. So anyway, two tracks are needed for that. I got that on the way. Dan Peacock's helped me out again with stuff like that out of his yard. Also, the rubber molding, while you would think just two would be necessary, actually three are. And the reason for that is, while this is obviously the B post forward, and then it's cut, the amount of material that's remaining on the Challenger seal from here down, while it's the right length, from this point down, it flattens out and it accommodates this little rubber square here. So the glass in the Challenger starts right here. So the seal is different from this point down in the Challenger, and it doesn't accommodate the glass all the way into this lower corner right here. So what I've done is I've taken another seal that I just happen to have laying around here, and I have a third seal coming along again from Dan, and that will give me enough material to do down the rest of the way. And the reason, again, I'll reiterate about that is the fact that this is, well, this looks like the same profile. This is actually a piece of rubber that mounts around the entire piece of glass before the glass is installed. This is not actually like this. This is a metal track, and then the seal tucks in here. This is all rubber around this window completely. So there's no material off of this car that can be used, especially since this will not go, I think I need another 3 inches of this material here for this to work. At any rate, so what I'm trying to do now is the other thing that I had to work out is that this track fit fine. I was able to slowly lean on it without kinking it and flatten it out to where it would fit this profile, and then cut it and install it pretty much in the same location as the normal stainless steel track in this location. This A-post is a different story, of course. We talked about on the last video about how this has more of an arch to the glass in this direction here. And I was hoping that the arch that was already in this track would be enough, but it wasn't. It was about, when it was touching in the middle, it was gapped about 1/8 of an inch on both ends. So what I had to do is I had to split the track down the center, and then I had to go on the shrinker stretcher and put more arc into this so that it would accommodate the glass, the arc and the glass. The other thing I had to do was I had to rotate it down. Now you see I have a spacer here that it's mounted against, so that it tips this down a little bit. Normally this has a pretty big bevel for this track to go in and accommodate the normal rubber bead that goes into the A-pillar. This goes in at a flatter angle. The glass engages it more in a directly, almost like a 90 degrees. It's got a little bit of an angle to it, but obviously because these are tilted backwards. But it's not quite as severe as this. So I had to roll this out, and then I had to correct this angle here, and then I had to take the back half and do a similar move with that. And once I get everything exactly precisely where it's supposed to go, right now this is bottom of this rubber track where the window fits in right here is not directly aligned with the center of where this glass comes up and out of the door right here. So what's happening is right now this is not feeding into this correctly, so I'll have to correct that. So I'm fooling around with that. The other thing that I have determined is that by weighing the glass, this glass, let's see, the old glass in the car was 11.4 pounds. This new glass is only 10 pounds, which is a good thing. I was under the impression it was going to be heavier, because mine were, and which taxes the motor, and that's the important part here. But with the addition of the steel bracket that they provided here, That's another 1.8 pounds, so it would be 11.8 pounds as opposed to 11.4, which is a little bit heavier than you would have for the stock glass. Not too bad, but you know, there's other things to be considered. The friction, the movement of the glass can put a drag on the glass, and my car with the old seals, in order to reduce the wind noise, you have to get this chrome strip that comes up here with the seal on it to come up pretty tightly against this quarter window. Well, that causes a lot of drag when this thing goes up. If the door is closed and you're in the car and you just try to run the window up, there's a lot of drag there. So hopefully with this seal, it's just going against this really soft rubber. We won't have that extra drag, and we'll see how that works out. Anyway, pretty long-winded, but I'm probably going to make a lighter steel cradle because the glass really needs to be grabbed. There's some holes in the bottom of this glass that you can bolt through, and I also have to have a tab that drops down from this carrier that the window regulator has two clamps that normally go straight directly through the Challenger glass. That's these right here. They have a little bolt through. There's a little rubber. It's like it's like a little rubber mouth here, and it grabs the glass and then it through bolts, and then it clamps it like that, and that's what holds the glass secure. Well, I have to create a tab to simulate that because obviously I can't drill out my glass and put that in there. Even if I did have the tool to do that, obviously, which doesn't exist, this glass is already shorter than it needs to be to accommodate that locating point for both of those. Anyway, again, pretty long-winded, but that's where I am with that, and we'll continue to see if we can't work this all out. All right, I just thought I'd show you this piece before I put it back in. You can see that I split it down the middle in order to shape both halves, put more curve into the track, and then I put a piece of sheet metal on the back side once I was sure of the curve, and so that I could weld the track back together, so now that'll hold the rubber in properly. Anyway, I thought I'd show you that before I put it back in. Okay, so I've got this reattached. I've pulled it out a little further than it was. You can see it kind of fades into this spacer, so I've got it pulled out at the bottom a little bit more so that it lines up with this these two window whiskers that are inside the door opening here. And so it feeds into this a little bit better. The other thing I've done is I've got just a piece of 070 aluminum just basically temporarily clamped to my top inner pinch weld over here and down to this bottom of this door pillar right here, so that I could feed this bead onto there and hold it in place. Try to get a sense of how that's all going to work out at the bottom of the door here where this closes, and make sure that I have this all shoved up in here even with the roof. It's kind of a back engineering from where it has to go. In other words, I got to start at the end of where the travel is into the seals and make sure that all of that's correct before I can mess with positioning anything inside the door that's going to get it to that location. So again, chicken and an egg scenario. I have to work all this out. Again, this is done with the plexiglass window. Lexan window. Hopefully all of this will work out fine with the glass window being the same curvature and everything. I'll have to tweak it a little bit probably. But anyway, moving on. All right, so it turns out the battery was a little dead and dying on my digital scale, so I had to reweigh everything and take a look at everything again. So the original Challenger glass was 11.6 pounds. The one-piece glass by itself without its original steel cradle was just 10 pounds, which was nice. The original cradle, though, was 4.2 pounds, so that would have made it 14 and a half pounds, or 14.2 pounds, I should say. So I decided not to use that long ago, but I had to come up with something. But it ends up being around 1.6 pounds, what I have so far now. I may ended up putting a capture flange on the front face of this for the through bolts, where it through bolts the glass. There's 3 bolt up locations on this one-piece glass, but I'm only going to use the 2 in the center of the glass. This is going to basically bolt up through here and here. There'll be bedding material on the back side. This is 70 thousandths material. It's bent over here 1/4 of an inch to make it rigid front to rear. It has a small little seat here. What's going to happen here is I'm going to take, like I said, I'm going to have this bedding material on the back side, and so that the glass will be against that. And there'll also be bedding material on the bottom side over here. So these flanges here are 3/16 of an inch. Turns out they're the same dimension as the glass, which is nice. I thought the glass was 1/4 inch. So they told me from One Piece Products it was 1/4 of an inch, but it turns out to be 3/16, which is nice because it's lighter and it's the same size as the Challenger glass as far as thickness is concerned. At any rate, this bolts the glass to this cradle, and then this is the capture point. The little jaws will both bolt through here and then also grab the glass at the same time because it's the same dimension in these 2 locations here and on the other end. And hopefully that'll be substantial enough to make sure everything's stable. Anyway, that's where I'm at with this. We'll see if that all works out or I have to start over. Alright, well here's where the super fiddly part comes in, and it's super tedious because there's it's not just a plug and play deal, obviously. The angle of these regulator arms inside the Challenger is slightly different than it would be to carry up this window. In other words, we want to go up at the angle that's established at the bottom of the glass here. This while this is close, it's not perfect. So I'd forgotten about the fact that on my car I had a shorter bracket on one side and a longer bracket on the other in order to compensate for the fact that the angle is different. So basically this trapezoid here, in other words, these points are the same as far as across these regulator lifting arms, okay, as they measure off in the Challenger. So these rails are spaced out parallel, but the problem is that this trapezoid has to be flattened out just a little bit. Well, what that does is this lifting arm is slightly lower than this lifting arm when that happens, because they're meant to be, you know, slightly more askew. So, like I said, there's a lot of back and forth here, a lot of do and undo in order to get this stuff to work, because I've only done these arms one time before, so I'm running into some of the issues that I forgot completely about using these arms, but we'll just have to muddle through. It's the best setup for it. Well, based on my own experience of putting one-piece glass in my car, I had asked One Piece Products in California before I ordered the kit if there was anything that had to be cut out of the door in order to make the glass clear. Now in my car, I had to severely cut back this gusset over here to clear the glass, but I didn't know what size glass they had or what their rails looked like, so I couldn't say. The other thing I was curious about is there's 2 little flanges here. One of them is attached to the inner door, the other one's to the skin, and it's where the vent window goes down in through here, and then you through bolt it. Now I would consider this to be quite a bit of a hazard if you're installing a single piece of glass to have those 2 metal brackets sticking out like that. Anyway, they said that there was no need to cut anything out of the door, but I find that a little bit unbelievable. So that's what I'm in the process of doing here, and also that stabilizing bracket at the bottom that stabilizes the bottom of the vent window track right there. This is just got done drilling this out right now. I may or may not have to cut that out depending on where the glass, the corner of the glass, how far down it goes. Anyway, that's what I'm up to on that. Over here, I've taken and got this trapezoid where I want it, as far as the angle of the following the angle of the glass on the bottom edge and then up the side, so that it's the glass will run up the rubber molding. It's a little bit different on the Challenger. Obviously the glass is not slanted back over here, so when the glass starts up, it's out here, and then as it comes up, it slowly comes into this rubber molding. On the Charger, it's going to want to slide up at this angle over here, which that's what I'm trying to accommodate. I've got this. This is all possibly temporary, possibly permanent. It's just hold everything together in the geometry that it's supposed to lift this straight up. Also, even though this is shifted so that this mount is lower, there's a 3/8 inch difference from when this hits the top of the track. There's little bumpers here and there's little adjusters here, so I have plenty of adjustment here to run this bumper up, and it'll hit this top stop over here. And this one here is already set. If I need to reduce it a little bit, I've got about 1/8 of an inch. I can reduce that one, so I've got plenty of room to make that correction in my angle for this glass. So now that this is all kind of sitting together, I can run these this carriage up and down when I need to. I already switched the motor out to just a 2-prong motor so that I could operate it with just a simple window switch and a battery. Anyway, I just keep digging. All right, that's what it looks like with everything just shoved into place. The wind is captured in this track here. The track itself is captured by these 2 grab points, and you can see how this one's much lower. It doesn't actually grab the glass. This one goes up high enough to get the glass itself, but it seems pretty stable. Anyway, bottom line is now this is hitting the inside door panel, and I have this all up into the molding up here, so I'm kind of back engineering from the roof back down with this through the door in order to mount this whole mechanism. So the mechanism is all locked together right now. There's probably some fine adjustment that has to be made, of course, but we've got it somewhat lined up over here with this bead over here. Of course, I don't have a permanent B post there, so I've got to jigger it up a little bit over here, just toss it around a little bit more. But mainly what I have to do is, now that I have this in there in a general location, I can take and cut out the inner door panel just in the area of the motor to let the motor pass through the inner door so that I could swing this in. One of the most important things that has to be achieved is this arc that starts the window here has to follow through so that the window comes down through the mail slot up here and stays centered up. So as it rolls down these things, it can't move in or out, which that can happen very easily depending on where these pickup points are, and I still may have a problem with that. But mainly I have to swing this bottom in quite a bit more severely than it is right now. Okay, so this is what this is all about, making this kind of stuff. So modifications, more fit, and then more modifications. So what I did here was, first thing is I took this track. You see I just threw this L track on here to hold these 2 vertical tracks together. And it has a little 1/2 inch lip by 1.5 inches here. Well, it looks like I'll probably be able to use these and just weld them right into the car. Right now it does anyway. But this 1/2 inch lip was sticking out the same way that this one was. This was hitting the inside of the door, and it was holding it out just a little bit. So I flipped it around, reversed it so that the L channel that stiffens this up is heading in the other direction. The other thing that I did was I cut this motor mount loose, and I pushed it so that it's further inboard on the door side, the inside of the door, because if I need to adjust these 2 bottom screws here, as you can see, they have adjustment, so you can move these tracks, you can swing them in and out. If I need to fine tune these, I didn't want the motor to be an issue as far as the glass clamps behind these tracks. So if the motor's sticking too far in that direction right there, the glass obviously would hit the motor. So trying to get ahead of it, I pushed the motor mount out in this direction, pushing it more towards the interior of the car. Then the track itself, I told you that I had forgotten that I had one tab longer than the other on my car to correct for the angle of the way these things go up and down, because you're just changing the angle of how they're designed to go in the Challenger. At any rate, so what I had to do was I had to add another inch to this tab here. So weld it on another 3/16 piece of steel. So this now will through bolt through this hole instead of this hole over here. I also went ahead and I added, since we're no longer going to be like in this front position, this grab mechanism goes past here and grabs the glass in addition to grabbing this tab, which I wanted to have that on both sides, but that's not possible. So since it's just going to grab this tab now because it falls short about here, I decided I'd add a little bit more length to this glass seat track so that I could pick up that third and final hole that bolts the glass to this track. So it's a little longer tab, and we made some corrections here. Now, as far as the weight of it's concerned, the new cradle, this was, the glass was 10 pounds, and this was 1.6 pounds. It's now a little bit heavier. It's 1.8 pounds or something like that. In other words, it's probably about 0.2 pounds heavier than the whole setup for the Challenger, which is not that bad. That's pretty darn close. So anyway, the other thing I will have to do, which I thought I'd have to do, which they said I shouldn't have to do from the glass manufacturer, is the window doesn't come down and in flush to this top molding here. It sticks up about an inch, and it's hitting this gusset here. So this gusset has to be cleared out for that glass to go past that. So I'll have to get in there and cut a little bit of that gusset out too. So anyway, that other system wasn't going to be plug and play, that's for sure. If you had a closed door and you're trying to put that other system in there, I don't know, you'd have some sort of nightmares going on. At any rate, this is where I am. I'm going to move along from here. All right, sneaking up on final product here. So I had everything in. I'm looking at it, and the way I set this up originally is I wanted to split the difference as far as where the glass landed between these two rails, figuring that, if I put it right in dead center, that it wouldn't tax one arm or the other. So after looking at it, though, in the car, I realized that there wasn't enough room in front of this mechanism, or wasn't going to be enough room to put the speaker that belongs in the lower door over here. So after thinking about it for about 2 seconds, I took and you can see these holes are shifted over, and basically shifted the glass over in this carrier 2 inches in order to open up this front a little bit and move this whole mechanism back towards the latch side of the door. So I had to make that modification, and as I was looking at it, it's probably for the best anyway, because the glass is slanted at the top, and so most of the weight is towards the back of the glass anyway. So centering up the glass based on the bottom edge wasn't really distributing the weight evenly anyway. So moving it back actually helps it a little bit on that end, but not that I would know exactly what that would end up being. But anyway, this area right here where this cable is, while they're flexible, they're not infinitely flexible. So this bottom piece here, it cannot be bent too far, and this bottom over here hits the bottom of the inner door once you start to roll the bottom of this in to try and get the angle correct for how this goes up through the mail slot, so to speak, towards the roof. So the bottom has to get rolled in, and so what was happening is there's a slope on the inside of the bottom door, which I'll show you in a minute, which heads uphill, and the closer you get to the inside panel of the door, the less room you have top to bottom. So what I had to do is I had to relieve the bottom of the door. You'll see that I had to do that on my car also, to get these to roll in at the bottom. These are adjustable. These will move in and out an additional amount, but I want to leave them just where they're at for now, because right now they're even. Hopefully I can achieve everything that I need to with these still fixed in their location. At the top we have fixed studs, and they're mounted to this, and this will eventually get welded to the car, as will this panel here where the motor mounts. But in the meantime, I have to adjust this in and out also, but there's no adjusters on this. So what I've done is the inside of the door here on the top side is I've placed these are quarter 20s, and they have locking nuts on them, nylocks. So what I'll do is I will just weld a little nut on the bottom of that track that I just showed you, and then I will roll these in and out until I have it at the right location, and then I will permanently put a counter flange in here and fix it right to the inner door. These will no longer be effective at that point. But for me to fine-tune this location here and get this right where it needs to go, so that this all runs up into this weather stripping here, I have to have some adjustability at this point. Down at the bottom of the door, like you see, the door slopes upward here, obviously to drain water out of the bottom of the door. What I've done is I've flattened this out a bit. It's still got a little bit of slope, but it's about 3/8 of an inch down, so that as I roll that regulator arm in here, it'll have more clearance here, and also this little pocket here. Also, what I've done is I've cleared out all the way down to about 1/4 of an inch, and put a little Z flange, which is 1/4 inch up, 1/4 inch over, and about 1/2 inch up. And what that'll do is that's a weld point for me to weld the lower flange to. That still gives me some adjustment to adjust those arms in or out right at this particular moment, as far as that's concerned. I also had to clear out more material up here because it was hitting this little bulge here as I tried to roll it in to get it in the ideal spot. It's probably a prominence of about, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch from this surface, but it was just enough that it kept the bottom from flowing in the where I need it. So at any rate, so a little bit of more chopping to get a little bit more clearance for stuff, some adjusters here, and we'll go on from here. Yeah, another thing I forgot to mention is while I had the opportunity, I marked out these large holes over here, front and back. Those are the actual locations of the studs that bolt the vertical black regulator runners up and down here. And once this is all installed, if I didn't have these holes, there'd be no way to go in with a ratchet and loosen those up and take those arms out. So I went ahead and marked them and widened those holes out so that you can access the nuts that permanently affix these verticals to the car. Well, this is still the Lexan window in here, so I'm gonna there's gonna be a little bit more weight on here, so I don't have any premature celebrations yet, but this is what we've got so far. So it's tucking up in the seal, but I've got the battery on a charger because the battery was at 12.3 volts, and I guess this needs a full 13 volts to work and to get that tuck up into that seal at the very top there. But the good thing is it tucks up in the A post, and that should hopefully eliminate some of the wind noise that I have been struggling with my own car. Anyway, I have to wait for the bedding material to put the real glass in that frame right there, and then we'll go on from here. But so far so good. Anyway, we'll see what happens next. Okay, I was kind of hoping to have this up and running by the end of this week, but put the glass in, and there's a few challenges to get this thing running a little bit better than what it's doing right now. So I think it needs to go on a little bit of a diet. I've gone ahead and taken this cradle apart and drilled some holes in, try to lighten it up a bit. I'm about almost 2 pounds heavier than the Challenger glass, so any weight reduction I can accomplish at this point is going to save me a lot. I finally got the bedding material, proper bedding material. It's rubber with a cloth back on it. What that enabled me to do is easily remove this glass from this cradle inside the door, instead of, there was this came with a rubber bedding, and man, that stuff was stuck like glue. It wasn't actually glued on, but it was heck to try and get that thing taken off of the glass. So rather than you reuse that stuff, I got this stuff here. Like I said, it has a cloth backer on a rubber. And that way, if I have to take this glass out, I can take these 3 bolts out at the base of the glass and just slide the piece of glass out, rather than trying to, where the Challenger, you would just remove the bolts through the glass on either side, and that's it. And then you slide the glass out. But it, of course, doesn't have this tracking on the bottom. At any rate, so I have to wait till next week to see if this thing works the way I want it to work. You know, with everything loose, you know, this thing operated pretty good. When I started tightening things down, you know, there were some drag issues that I have to address. You know, it's, you know, you have to kind of keep looking around the whole thing to see what's going on, and make your adjustments as you go. Either way, I appreciate everybody tuning in to watch, and I'll see you on the next one.